You've made this promise before that next year is going to be spectacular. Watch what I do, check out my health, check out my business, check out my finances. It's going to be at a different level. I'm going to change everything about my life. This is my New Year's resolution. Have you said that before? I've heard people who've done that. I've done that. And then, you know what? You make that promise in the January of every year. And what happens? It doesn't stick. Nothing changes. In this video, I'm going to show you why that happens. And I'm going to show you what you need to do to make a real change. Check this out. So the first thing that you have to remember in order to make 2026, because we're about to enter 2026, in order to make this year a year that you will never forget, is to have a realization, a breakthrough. And the biggest breakthrough that you can have is the breakthrough of awareness. What awareness am I talking about? Well, each and every one of us is living in a program. It's a program that is unique to us, right? We're living in a loop. Have you noticed that, you typically have the same level of health, more or less? You may lose weight, but then you gain back, or if you look at money, typically your money situation is the same, which means that you make a lot of money at some point, but then you kind of lose it all again and it kind of goes back to the same level. Or your relationships, you find someone so exciting and you have that moment with them, and then a few months pass, and over a period of time it just becomes the same again. It just loses that excitement. And if this is happening to you, if you have this constant yo-yo effect, right? You do well and then you kind of lose it, and then you do well and you kind of lose it. It's because we live in a loop, right? We're living a program, and this program reinforces itself. It's like, you start here and then you go through this journey and then you end up back at the same place. Like, there is no growth, right? There is no moving to the next level. And the reason for that is that the program first has to be identified before it can be broken. So the first thing, if you want to make 2026 a success, is that understand what loop you are trapped in, right? What is the trap that is keeping you from your next level in life, right? What is your pattern? What is the program that you've been running that is preventing you from actually getting to the next level, right? This is the reason why in January 2025, after your New Year's resolution big moment in Feb, it just all broke apart, because the pattern emerges itself again and again, because people are not aware, people are asleep to the pattern. So the first thing that you have to do is becoming aware about that pattern. Now, what you can do right after this video ends is actually I'm giving you access to a free tool to help you understand your patterns, right? There's a link in the description below. You can go and click on it, and once this video is done, go and do that assessment. It'll take you less than 5 minutes, and it will give you an in detail 19-page report that will tell you your patterns. And the awareness, the breakthrough that comes from that is going to be unimaginable for you. So make sure you do that. Let's go to the next step. The second step of making 2026 a success, once you know about your pattern, right? It's a huge breakthrough. It's a massive breakthrough. But you do have to break that pattern, right? So once you know what that pattern is, then it's time for you to do something drastic, to do something crazy, to do something that you would normally never do. Because the only way to interrupt a pattern is by interrupting the pattern. It's by doing something that you would normally never, ever, 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 ever do. And we call that a pattern interrupt. See, the thing with a pattern is that a pattern is unconsciously taking energy from you all the time, right? There's a point that comes, when you start with all the energy of your New Year's resolution, there's a point that comes where you just can't keep it up anymore. Do you remember that feeling? Like, have you ever tried to lose weight, go to the gym regularly, and then there comes a point where it just feels like life is overwhelming and there's too much going on, and then the motivation's gone, and it's not that the motivation's gone, it's like the energy is gone. It's not that the energy is gone, it's just the energy is being used up by the pattern to keep the pattern alive, right? And so the first thing that needs to happen is that we need to break that pattern so that we can start conserving this energy, this life force that you can use to create that change in your life. So super important is to interrupt that pattern. How do you know what to do to interrupt your pattern? Depends upon your pattern. I can't give you cookie cutter advice, right? Otherwise, this would be pointless. This would be one of those ridiculous self-help videos where you say, oh, go get a cold shower. I'm not saying cold showers aren't great. I like doing cold showers, but it may not be right for you, right? Everybody is different. Everybody's pattern is different. So first of all, go and identify your pattern. Once you know your pattern, you'll know what to do in order to interrupt that pattern. And we also have resources to help you with that if you want help with that. The last step in order to make 2026 a successful year for you is remember that the biggest shifts, the biggest changes will only come when you decide to make a shift at the identity level. You see, you could make a shift at the behavior level. You could do that. But the biggest problem with making behavior shifts is that if you don't shift who you believe you are, then you won't really be able to sustain any of those behaviors without effort, right? Without willpower. People talk about willpower, discipline, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there comes a point where your willpower is not going to support you anymore. There's going to be a point where there's just too many demands on your willpower, too much demand on your discipline, and if you haven't created an identity level shift, meaning if you are trying to become healthy, you can change the behavior that you have. You can eat healthy, you can exercise, but the second that you aren't at a 100% discipline level when it comes to that, and your discipline is being taken by work, being taken by a relationship, you're under stress, the first thing to go is going to be the health stuff, for sure. And that's because you don't believe here, your identity is not that of a person who is healthy, who has a good body. If you ask somebody who is healthy, who believes that they're an athlete, that you believes that they have a good body, who believes that what part of their identity is to be fit, to have maybe, I'm not saying six-pack abs has to be what you want, but if that's what you want, that's what you have to believe who you are. That's your identity level shift, right? Now here's the thing, identity level shift comes from facing the very thing about yourself that you don't want to face. It comes from facing the things that you are afraid of, right? It comes from facing that uncomfortable part of yourself beyond which there's a version of you who is the person that can get all of these things done effortlessly, right? Whatever your goal is for 2026, there's a version of you who achieves that effortlessly. Let me give you a quick example. 6 years ago, I was doing a job. I could not imagine running a business. I could not imagine being an investor. I could not imagine being wealthy. Today, I do all of those things as a regular part of my day. There was a time in my life where I could not imagine making eye contact here on a YouTube video with a camera. I remember my very first video, I think I still have it somewhere, where I was walking and making a video, like a vlog, and I was finding it very difficult to make eye contact with the camera. It was difficult, right? Today, I've been having eye contact with you for the last like I would say 90% of this video. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a version of you that finds whether your New Year's resolution is to lose weight, whether your New Year's resolution is to, I don't know, make X amount of money, start a business, whatever it is, find the lover of your life, having that relationship, being that person who's emotionally strong. There's a version of you out there, in the future that finds this stuff to be effortless. And that is the version of you that you want to tap into. And that person already exists. The only thing that prevents that person from coming out from within you is the fear. If I let that happen, what's going to happen? And through that fear, it's the hero's journey, right? If you don't know what the hero's journey is, it's a journey that of transformation that every person has to go through. It's the stuff that the most successful stories in the world are made of. If you look at Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, that's a hero's journey, right? If you look at Frodo in the Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter, again, it's the hero's journey. You go through, if you look at what each one of these characters went through, they went through a process of facing their deepest, darkest fears. And I'm not saying, that you have to go and fight monsters or do something dramatic or something like that, but it's going to feel dramatic to you. If you're somebody who has a difficulty saying no to people because you're worried, what if people don't like me? What if this happens? What if that happens? Well, for you have to start saying no. You have to face that fear, like do the thing that you don't want to do and then see what happens. Because a lot of the fears that we have, you and me, people have in this world, these are fears that are not real, in the sense that if you were to go through them, you will realize that things are actually not as bad as you think that they are. So a lot of these fears that, if I do this, if I don't say yes to everything, then this will happen. If I'm not the perfect, husband or wife or perfect person, then this might happen. If I, show my vulnerability, this might happen. If I don't have the perfect image, then, people are going to think less of it. These are our fears. And there are so many. Your fear depends upon your program. And if you find out your program, you'll find out your fear, you'll find out the path that you need to follow in order for you to create that identity level shift that will transform everything. Once you actually get past that zone of fear and get on the other side, you will now be a completely new person. And the things that you will be able to achieve is, it'll be unimaginable to you. Because I've lived that journey myself. I've seen many people live through that journey where they go through that process of transformation, and in a year or two they can't even recognize themselves, like, whoa, who am I? And that's what you want. At the end of 2026, you want to look back on your journey and look at yourself and say, whoa, who have I become? I didn't even realize, that I've become unrecognizable. That's what you want people to say about you. And you can do it. But if you need help with it, if you need any support, first thing that I would say you do is go to the link in the description, take that free assessment. It is brilliant. It's completely free. And go through your report. You'll get a 19-page report in your email. Go through that report. Understand, become aware, create that breakthrough for yourself. Break the pattern, face your fears, and start your journey of real inner transformation. Become that person that will look at your goal for 2026 and say, that's easy. I can do that. This is Jay. If you like this video, like, subscribe, go to the comments, write me something over there. I'd love to hear more from you. Thank you very much. I hope you like this video. Thank you. Bye-bye.